Welcome to the Windows Computer and Technology channel, and one of the things that I wanted to continue today as we talk about the operating systems of our past, of course, Windows XP is next. So we were talking about Windows Millennium in the last video, how that was major blunder, major problem on the part of Microsoft. What happened next is that at the time of Windows Millennium, there were two directions Microsoft was going. It wanted to continue the Windows NT family because the NT family is the graphic user interface side of Windows. And that was for consumers. And Windows 2000 was also there, but that was meant, and Windows 2000 was for business. Microsoft decided that they would actually merge all of that together. So Windows NT technology and Windows 2000 merged together to bring us Windows XP. Windows XP would be a home version for users at home and a Pro version or a more advanced version for business. And what happened is that Windows XP became the first operating system from Microsoft that for consumers did not rely on MS-DOS. For the first time, DOS was not the underlying system where Windows XP was to work on. That proved to be amazing because it actually gave so much more flexibility and also stability to the system. And actually Windows XP was praised for the stability of the system. So this is the first thing that everybody noticed, how stable Windows XP was. Now, one of the things about Windows XP also that wasn't all positive, the new activation system. For the first time ever, Microsoft used an online activation system. Why? Because it found that a lot of people now were on the internet. And if you didn't have internet, well, they had an alternate method, which was to call a phone number and activate it via phones. So you could do that, and then your machine was activated with Windows XP. And that created the first activation controversy for Microsoft. When you got Windows XP, you had two versions, actually. You had a version which was called the upgrade version, and you had a version which was the full version. That also was something kind of new. The upgrade version was less expensive than the full version, but you needed to have a previous Windows installed in order to upgrade to Windows XP. The full version didn't require any previous Windows. You just installed it and that's it. The Windows XP graphic user interface was also interesting. It was more modern. It brought some new nice options and colors with, rounded edges. Sounds like Windows 11 on some of the windows. It had a file explorer that was also much more interesting with some pane on the left side where you could see folders, and it was a more complex system, and it was much more interesting over Windows, the previous Windows. There was a lot of interesting stuff in here. One of the major things that also was a problem, and as a tech guy I was at the forefront of that, is because of the departure of DOS-based Windows, we also had a departure of compatibility with a lot of older technologies. That meant that some software that worked fine on all versions of Windows 95, 98, Millennium would stop working in Windows XP. That meant there was also some hardware that would not work. So people would be actually stuck with printers that stopped working. And I got a lot of people ranting at that. And, we rant a lot right now at Windows 11, but I can tell you that the ranting for Windows XP was as big, if not more, than what it was for Windows 11 right now for Windows XP. What happened is that there was a lot of things that just didn't go right for most people, and they found it unacceptable. It was one of the first versions also that pushed the minimum requirement a little further ahead, and that also created a big problem. And you got to remind yourself that today's computers, can cost as little as $400 or $500. Back then, computers rarely went under 1,000. So the controversy was even worse than today. So as a tech guy, you had to, accept the rant, and the people rant at who? They rant at the guy that fixes their computer, and they don't understand that something that worked before doesn't work anymore. It was also the start of one major thing that was a problem, actually. So first of all, just to let you know that Windows XP went to retail on October 25th, 2001. So 20 years ago. The minimum requirements were a problem for some people. So Microsoft actually said the minimum requirements for Windows XP were a Pentium or compatible 233 megahertz PC. And it recommended a Pentium at least 300 megahertz. Now, let me tell you one thing. That minimum, Windows XP, was sluggish and didn't work well. They also had a requirement of a certain type of BIOS or compatible firmware, which was new, because before that, it relied on DOS. They didn't really care about the BIOS or anything. The memory recommended 64 megabytes, and that was not enough, honestly. The minimum requirement. The recommended 128. And I can tell you that as Windows XP went by, I had Windows XP running back then on a Pentium 3 600 megahertz. And by the end, when that machine, I gave that machine away to someone because they didn't have a computer, I had 512 megabytes of RAM in that machine. That was really what was needed for Windows XP to run really well after all the service packs, because there were 3 service packs for Windows XP over time. It needed more memory than what they actually recommended. 1.5 gigabyte of free space, and there was a master boot record used to boot to the Windows operating system. A CD-ROM drive. Display, Super VGA, at least 800 by 600. And sound cards, of course, and speaker, a keyboard and mouse. There was later on a X64 version, a 64-bit version that was released much later for mostly business orientation, basically. So that was interesting, and the first wave of people going there and having things not working passed. And after several years, Windows XP probably became one of the most loved Windows operating system. I think we all agree that one of the first things we all noticed is how system crashes or blue screens in Windows XP were extremely rare, if not non-existent for a lot of people. And that was such a refreshing thing, basically. Of course, the user interface refresh was nice. All sorts of new technologies were implemented. And it came with Internet Explorer 6, Outlook Express 6, Windows Messenger, MSN Explorer, which was something back then. There were new networking features for including Internet connection firewall, the first operating system of Windows that actually has a firewall integrated into it, internet connection sharing. There was also the first versions of IPv6, which was kind of interesting. The backward compatibility worked in a different way. So like I said, a lot of software didn't work, but you could try something. If you had old software, you could right click, and for the first time you had something called compatibility mode. That would actually let you choose what version of Windows you wanted compatible with, and hopefully it would work. It worked on some software, but it didn't work on a lot of it. It's the first system that really protected its core files. So a lot of the software that didn't work because they couldn't write to specific folders. It had a imaging feature with Windows Pictures. There was a fax viewer and fax send and receive. There was a new feature of the improvement driver reliability that had driver or device driver rollback capabilities. Of course, System Restore was improved, making it even better, and it did work quite well, System Restore, back in the day. They had fast user switching when you had several users on the same operating system. And so there's a lot of interesting stuff in here that Windows XP had. 3 service packs that added some new features and bug fixes. Those were nice because after years and years, there were so many Windows updates to install. The service packs were refresh because you could install a service pack and you knew that it installed all the Windows updates that was before that service pack. It made it a little easier, especially for a tech guy, to be able to update Windows XP. It was, of course, at the time, probably one of the most popular Windows versions, and it definitely was a game changer in terms of stability, and was definitely loved. At the end, a lot of people didn't want to leave Windows XP. It still runs on roughly 0.5% of PCs, but mostly, if you look at PCs, there's a lot of the PC stuff, which was mostly, point of sales and machines that need to run specific, hardware that never had an upgrade in drivers and so on. But it was a refresh. It was nice. It was nice. Everybody probably remembers and will never forget that green field here with the blue sky. And one of the jokes that was going around here is that's what Bill Gates sees from his mansion when he looks out the window. But it's an actual picture that was taken, and I saw somewhere on the internet that somebody took the same picture like 20 years later of the same place, and it's changed a lot. So hopefully you enjoyed Windows XP. I did. I thought it was a great system. Did a lot of gaming on Windows XP, and I used Windows XP on that Pentium 3600, and I used Windows XP, I believe, on my when I gave away my Pentium 3600. I moved on to a Pentium 4 at 3 gigahertz. And that Pentium 4 at 3 gigahertz was also running Windows XP at the time. And of course, that one was running Windows XP much faster. And it was really, really nice. But didn't last long because that machine was upgraded later on. But nice souvenirs and nice moments of using Windows XP. And boy, that stability was amazing. If you enjoy our series, please do subscribe. If if you enjoy it, if you have any souvenirs, anything you want to talk about or comment, it's always fun to see your comments and your going back in time, your memories of the older Windows versions. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe, give us thumbs up. Thank you for watching.